Welcome to Open Mind Podcast. My name is Jeremy. If you are passionate about continuous learning and improvement throughout your life, this is the right podcast for you. Please make sure to share, like, and comment if you like it. Suggest guests on the comment sections and questions as well. Thank you. Today with Rachel and also Bob Davis. So today we're going to explore the feature of artificial intelligence. Bob Davis is the CEO of Ambrinic AI, a platform that is helping content creators and also founders to bring in live intelligence softwares. On top of that, he's also the author of various articles going over the future of AI, and is also the founder of Startup K, a firm that is empowering entrepreneurs in Nigeria to scale and grow their businesses.
Amazing.
Thanks for the introduction. It's great to be here. I'm excited for the conversation.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, Bob, your background, you worked in the same semiconductor for a long period of time. You also have a degree in mechanical engineers. So, what's made you even consider working in the AI or enter like the AI industry?
Yeah, so I started at Intel and Micron building computer chips for 10 years. We built flash memory, and it was awesome. Great to be a part of an amazing team of intelligent people. But it was a large corporation, kind of was going a little bit slow for my taste, so I wanted to break out on my own. And at the same time, data science was just coming into life, and people were getting excited about all the hype in data and big data. And so I just was looking at it, I was like, this is what I do every day. I should totally just double down on this. And started learning more about the different technologies and opportunities, and decided just to jump ship and go for it.
How long did it take you once you recognized that you were doing this every day? And how long did it take you to do the full transition out of your previous industry into this?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so spent a lot of time just nights and weekends learning about the different open source libraries and opportunities. So that was back in 2016, before most of this was popular. So it was great just to learn about scikit-learn and some of the basic tools in Python back then.
Nice. Visionary.
Yeah, nice. Can you tell us more about where we are currently with AI when it comes to what AI can do and its limitations?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think most people are familiar with some of the amazing things that ChatGPT has achieved recently. But you think about it's being able to pass the bar exam,
Yes.
and being able to pass SAT exams, and a lot of those standard question and answering is very well known and popular. And then of course the image creation and video creation we were just talking about, of how you can create all videos just with a text prompt.
Right.
And so it's a lot of amazing tools. I think maybe the limitations, maybe more interesting to think about, is it still cannot reason and do cause and effect. There's our custom models that will do logic and reasoning, but the large language models are just set to predict the next word, and then you feed that in and predicts the next word. And so those don't really have understanding about cause and effect, or kind of understanding of what are the things going on behind the scenes. And then it also doesn't, even just things that animals can do, right? Being able to look around and see if I go from here, then this is what's going to happen. And be able to set its own goals. It doesn't have that capabilities. And then as if most people, will notice all the time, it makes mistakes, right?
Yes.
I think ChatGPT is the best liar out there, because
It's a very great line.
it tells the truth 99% of the time, and then you have to really think about how and when is this wrong and why. And so you have to really understand especially when using it for coding, understand actually what's happening and how the different tools are being put together to see when you can use it and when you can't, and those types of things.
When you think about the limitations that you just mentioned and how far we've gone in such a short period of time, do you feel that one day these machines will have the consciousness as well as cognitive effects? And if you do, how far out are we?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think some of it depends on your definition of terms.
Okay.
Right. So you think about sentience, that is just being able to feel and see and hear things, and so, cameras can already see things, microphones can already hear things, and it's just a matter of how do you use that information for good or use it to make decisions. And so a lot of ways we're already there for that type of understanding of the world. But in terms of actual, like, you think about cognitive abilities, being able to make decisions and reason, like that's also there to a certain degree. But I think oftentimes we like to anthropomorphize machines, which just means like we want to make it like a human, right? Like when you watch a cartoon, and you have these animals running around like humans and talking like humans, we just want to kind of project our own capabilities onto other things. And so machine intelligence is different than human intelligence, of course. And so there's things that machines can do that we can't do.
Right.
And there's things that, and vice versa, of course. And so I think the question of consciousness is like a whole different question, is like, well, how do you actually know if something is conscious in the first place? And what tests would you actually do to like prove something is conscious? And so even by thinking about other people, how do you know someone else actually is conscious, right? We know this because we ourselves are conscious and we have our own intuitive firsthand experience, and we just assume that other people have that experience as well. And it's like the best theory that explains how the world works, right? It's kind of an assumption we all live with every day. We're not just in a dream world, right? And so then with machines and software, I think someday, like probably in the near future, we'll have things that act and seem more like people, just in the sense of being able to communicate and solve problems and things like that. The big things that are missing right now from that happening is an understanding of experience, right? And so there was actually, I forget, some research at university they did. They put a camera on a poor baby's head and like had it film like everything for like its first 2 years of life or something. And they're going to use that to train an AI model to try and give it like its own sense of identity, which is kind of funny. So who knows where that will go. But I think maybe to kind of summarize that, I think sometimes it comes back to definitions and like what is like we can argue all day about what is consciousness and if they're conscious, but I think we'll start getting to a place where once they are able to reason like people and communicate their answers and like proof check their responses, and then they'll start to feel more human-like, right? Because you can start communicating to a software like you're talking to a person, then all of a sudden we'll start to assume it's conscious. When is there really justification for that? Probably not at all.
Got it.
So
thank you.
That was a very long-winded answer.
No, it was great. It was great.
that was pretty much great, because I agree with you. I think we need to find out like what the consciousness is first in the first place, before even like going to train AI and give AI that consciousness so that it can be able to reason and take decision for some people. So Elon Musk is also one of the big characters when it comes to AI. He seems to be worried a lot about the future of AI. Okay, and I'm going to read a quote from him. Okay, he said, "What I'm seeing in terms of AI compute is I never see any technology advance faster than this. The artificial intelligence compute coming online appear to be increasing by factor of 10 every 6 months. Obviously, that cannot continue at a high rate forever, or we exceed the mass of the universe." So what I mean is the way the development of AI is appear to be going is literally faster. So do you see yourself worrying about the potential dangers of AI?
Yeah, I think that's on top of everyone's mind, right? Is what's the dangers of AI and what's going to happen. And I think naturally we're going to be afraid of things that we don't know, right? And fear of the unknown. And the good thing is that we have agency, right? So these AI systems, it's just software systems, and there's many different types of it. And right now we can it's like ChatGPT. You just ask it questions and it gives you great responses, right? And so one thing that we don't have yet is the ability for AI to even go and achieve specific goals and objectives that we want it to. And so I think the fear of AI kind of comes from just the fear of the unknown, right? And so I think like with anything, like Jan LeCun gave a great example of like a jet engine. How, when we first developed jet engines, it took a lot of work and incremental improvements, and eventually they were safe and we were able to use them. And so I think the same thing goes with AI. Is the more as we develop it, we'll just have to make sure safety and security is front and center. And as we do that, we're able to develop in a way that we can use it for good, use it for things that are helpful and beneficial for people, rather than, I think sometimes we get in trouble if we just start worrying about unknown fears that aren't in existence right now.
Right.
But it's a good thing to consider those fears as well.
Yeah, it's good to understand just understand the safety concerns and the biases and the ways that we can use it ethically, and also make sure that people that are deploying these tools are using it for good as well, and making sure we holding people accountable for the results of the things that they're using AI for.
Okay. Now, do you feel like the more we use AI, the more we as humans become less dependent on ourselves and more dependent on AI? So, for example, if I'm using AI to kind of think for me and come up with things, does that affect my critical thinking? Or do you feel as I get more creative at my critical thinking and how I can continue to use AI? Like, do you feel like it's either or?
Yeah, I think it's both and. So an example might be like the spell checker. When the spell checker first came out, we thought that we would all get worse at spelling.
Yes.
But in fact, the opposite happened, because now we all got immediate feedback on good spelling. But then you think about calculators, right? Before we had to do math by hand and do it on paper, and most people are probably worse at math in their head and worse at math in hand because we have calculators. But I don't think anyone would say that we need to go back to the time when we did all math in our head, right? So there's amazing benefits and amazing things that we can do now that we couldn't even dreamed of before we had calculators. And I think the same thing will be true with AI. There's probably some things that we'll get worse at if we rely on it too much. But I think in a lot of ways it'll be a productivity enhancer and actually enable people to understand more, to learn faster, and to be able to achieve, 10x, 100x of what they could previously. And so it's just a matter, just like any new technology, how do we use it for good and how do we use it to be able to achieve more and to help more people?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great example.
Yeah. And also it seems like AI will help us to increase our knowledge about consciousness and other topics that seems a mystery at this point. Because if you look, for example, at people like Elon Musk, Elon Musk has a lot of companies. Most of his company has something to do with AI. For example, if you look at Tesla, they're dealing with self-driving, making machine driving instead of human. And on top of that, you also have a Neuralink company that they are putting brain chip in people in the brains, and the tools that they're using is a robot, and that robot was trained and it literally has something to do with AI, and it's also a owner of a rocket company. Is obviously wanting to put people on Mars, and is right now developing some robots, humanoid robots, and there's some rumors going on the internet that you might send those humanoid robots in Mars to learn more about the planet, so that we have more data to see how we can make Mars habitable. So like AI will eventually help like in many things and we improve. So like, what are your thoughts about AI being able to help us increase our knowledge of consciousness as an expert?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think especially when it relates to consciousness in general, it's a very philosophical question. And I think sadly, science has let go of philosophy in many ways. Not to say that, and this is a generalization, of course, and there's many exceptions, but we tend to rely on the acquisition of knowledge through the scientific process, right? So we kind of delegate that to scientists who are experts in their fields, and they work together to run experiments and to analyze that data and to come up with answers. And they're already using technology to do that. There's definitely scientists using machine learning and different tools to help better understand their data. But at the end of the day, it has to be explainable. And so I think when it comes to consciousness, that's a big question of like, well, how do we understand what is consciousness? Right. How do we define it? And I think what we can do is we can define consciousness in ways that are poor or inadequate, right? Like the Turing test is a good example, right? Yeah. Where we're like, oh, can we build a robot that acts and seems like a human? And then we would know that it's really conscious, right? Well, it's like, well, you can just mimic all the things that a human does without necessarily being conscious.
Right.
And we've already kind of seen that with ChatGPT. And so maybe in some ways, there is some great opportunity for philosophers to really think through how do we define these terms and how do we set up tests that are actually falsifiable to say this is really conscious or not.
Right.
Where I don't think I'm not super familiar with anyone actively pursuing that work. I think right now it's just more a matter of how do we make use of this? How do we make it better? How do we leverage it as an existing machine? So I don't think that'll happen anytime in the near future. I think I'll probably be left for the philosophers to continue to debate.
Yeah. I wonder, do we even want, AI to be conscious, right? I know you talked about earlier that, humans have the agency over AI right now. And I mean, I feel like consciousness, I'm not going to define it myself, but I think one part of it is having agency over, yourself and over your mind and your body. And so I think some of the worries and fears based off of iRobot is that they become conscious and now they have agency and take agency over. So do you feel like that's something that maybe should be pursued, or should we focus on how can we continue to use it for our production?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the idea of agency really helps to clarify the matter too.
Yeah.
It's like whether or not something is conscious, we can have a robot or we can create a machine that has its own set of goals. And so that to me is a more interesting question because it's a question of like, because that's really the next level of development in a lot of these software systems is allowing them to be able to solve and do more things in the world and be able to address bigger objectives and solve bigger problems. And so as the scope of their power essentially grows, they'll have bigger influence in society, right? And so to think about, just software in general, like right now, like if, let's say, the like Visa went down, right? Like how much of the world runs on Visa or MasterCard, right? If we just couldn't spend money all of a sudden, like that would put a shot stop in most things, right? Or like electricity, right? When the power goes out, how many companies just shut down, right? Or the internet goes down. So we're very reliant on a lot of these systems already. And I think with AI, the fear, right, is that if it starts setting its own goals and its own objectives, and then it becomes and it's already super intelligent, way smarter than any human, then if those objectives are not in alignment with humans, then that's like the big problem. Right? That's what everyone's afraid about. Right. And so I think that as we develop AI, so the first step is like, well, we have to figure out how AI can actually go and achieve more dynamic sets of goals, right? That's kind of AGI. And then the next step is like, well, do we allow it to set its own goals?
Right.
And then allow it to have influence and power to be able to do that. So it's very much in the realm of science fiction, I think, at this point. But it is something where it's like, as we go about building these systems, we want to make sure that they're safe and that they're in control. And we understand, just like with any software system, as you release it, you want to make sure that you have controls in place. So that way, if something goes wrong, you know how to roll back, you know how to fix things like that. And so I feel like I dodged your question a little bit.
No, it was really good. And I think that how you said them having their own goals and being able, like, how far can they go? I'm thinking if they have their own goals and objectives and they're also passing the bar exam, like, will they be able to, defend themselves in court, when asked if they are going past the laws or the restrictions that, us humans in government set in place. So that's true. That's a next Hollywood blockbuster movie.
There you go. We could have ChatGPT write that script for us.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah, and it's true. I think from a legal perspective, right? Like right now,
Uh-huh.
a person is like a business entity or an individual or a group of people, and there's no, person. There's no entity from a legal standpoint that's like software,
Yes.
right? So maybe that's the threshold that we
That's
get
the
to that we
next-
don't want to get to, right?
Yes.
Is, we don't want to give it that level of autonomy.
Love it.
Especially if they're setting their own goals, they could be like, let's set a goal. We boycott all the rules and regulation our creator put on us. That'd be
Right.
terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah, there's lots of science fiction books about that.
Right.
Yeah. And we're getting close to science fiction. Recently, Elon Musk just was able to actually to put like the brain chip in human skull for the very first time in the world. So yeah, I'm very, very scared for the future, but there's good things though. Yeah. So every single person in this universe on this planet perceive reality a little bit differently. That's why people have their own beliefs. They have their faith. They have philosophies. So thinking over, okay, there is certain things or certain point that all of us agreed on as human, and there's literally like topics that Earth spirit or even philosopher are still agreeing. There's not like any common ground or like any common agreement. So what you think about developing AI and giving access to AI to all of this data? Will AI be biased, or how is it going to work? Because we don't agree on everything. So are we going to develop like a single digital like super intelligence that is able to do it by own, define what is good or bad, or is it going to be biased? But because we ourselves are really, really biased as human.
Yeah, so AI is really determined based off of the data that you feed it in, right? And so right now, ChatGPT and a lot of these large language models are basically trained on the internet's data, right? And so is there any biases on the internet right now?
So many.
So many, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm actually been impressed at, just at a cursory level, their ability to use reinforcement learning with human feedback to curtail the responses to be politically correct,
Yes.
right? But even that is a human feedback, right? Is they have these people that are going through and they're rating the responses like
Yes.
good or bad or
Yes.
whatever. And that's going to be based on their limited sample of whatever people. And so I think at the end of the day, it's really just what data are you giving it? And then also who are the people that are training it of like, yes, this is good or no, this is
Yes.
bad. And I think in order to, like in the future, what we're going to is more custom AI agents, right? Like you're going to have these large language models. We already have large language models that kind of have a general view of everything. But the next step is like training language models that are specific to individual tasks, right? So having your expert in business law or having your expert like medical doctor, telemedicine person or your, the conversational agent at, Comcast or whatever
Right.
company. And so each of those are going to be trained on their company's data and they're going to become experts at that company's data. So they're naturally going to have that company's biases. And so the same thing could be said for different cultures, right? So we could train a model on an Ethiopian culture, right? Or we could train it on a Chinese culture or Indian. And so those biases are going to be inherent within the data. And it's just a matter of what data are we feeding it and how are we training it to decide what's good or bad. And so I don't think there's going to be just one, like, this is the one language model we're all using.
Okay.
But even that is going to be biased based on whatever data we're giving it. So unfortunately,
Oh.
it doesn't really solve the problem of
The problem,
biases. We still have biases. Maybe by having access to all of the internet's data. Like no human has read all of the internet's data.
Right.
But these chatbots have kind of effectively learned it. And so in some sense, you kind of get an average of what is out there on the internet. But even if you think of all of the data on the internet, that's super biased, right? I mean, like there's very little data from like small developing like villages in like
Right.
rural Africa or something, right? Or in South Africa or wherever.
Yes. That just brought up so many different ideas because I think we talk about the importance of giving feedback and voting and different things like that. And I just thought about like when I use ChatGPT, I rate every response that they give me. I feel
okay.
like, I like good, bad, do better. And now I'm thinking, what about the people who never rate it? They just take it or adjust it. I'm like, so you all are getting my bias ChatGPT opinion. So if you want to have some input, I feel like you make sure you rate the ChatGPT. Speaking of bias, I am a business person, so I'm going to switch the conversation from philosophy to how do you see AI continue to impact the business world as we continue to develop?
Yeah, it's a game changer for sure. Probably larger than the cell phone was. And I was just watching a presentation from some of the people from A16Z that were talking about this and how one of the big game changers now is just the radical drop in cost of production of different things. So you think about like the images, right? You can create an image of whatever you want and they're good, high quality. Maybe it's not exactly what you want, but the cost of doing that is like a few cents compared to, a few $100s of having like a, creator actually go ahead and design it for you, right? So it's an order of magnitude shift. And so those types of improvements are definitely what allow for a platform shift changes in terms of the world of business. And so now it's really come up to I think the business experts. So people that know their job super well, they've been doing it, for 5 or 10 years or something, and they know what the opportunities are and what the needs are. If those people spend time learning what AI can do and what it can't do, then they'll be able to see like, oh, here's an opportunity. If we just plug it in this place, we can build a whole new like vertical. And then that creates an opportunity for a startup is if all of a sudden you can provide something at 1% of the cost of what it used to be, then you can revolutionize an industry.
So what do you recommend for those who, for both people, what do you recommend for those who have been doing their job for 10, 15 years and have these expertise? Like where do they go to, I guess, have job security or utilize their talents to, get ahead of the game? And then what do you recommend for high schoolers and college students who don't have that experience but would want to be in the forefront of using AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for both people, a great place to start is just spending time using, like ChatGPT and some of these tools and getting familiar with what it can do and what it can't do.
Okay.
And, it takes a little creativity in the beginning and being able to do it within your company's regulations and policies, of course, but getting an environment set up where you're able to try and see like, okay, if I were to, when you start a new task, be like, okay, how could I use ChatGPT to do this task for me, right? So like simply writing emails is an easy one.
Yes.
Or writing messages to your friends, things like that. And you can kind of get a feel for like what is it capable of and what is it not capable of. And then probably the more interesting thing is when you start, and then I guess the next step really is thinking through like your workflow. So a lot of individuals probably don't do this, but a lot of managers and business owners is like what they do all the time. And they think through what's kind of the workflow we have to do to be able to get a job done, right? So how do we go from, customer sends in a request to how do we actually get this fulfilled?
Yeah.
So you think about like right now is tax season, right? Everyone's doing their taxes.
Yes.
And so you might have a CPA come in and think of, okay, what are the steps a CPA has to do in order to review your taxes and make sure they're correct and they're accurate. And there's already a lot of startups in that space doing tax stuff. But then once you have each of those steps broken down, then you can think through, okay, where do we plug in AI in each of these steps and use it incrementally. And then for college students or high school students, definitely learning what's capable and what's there, and then seeing how it can be used. And then just like with anything, thinking through what are the things that you love doing and what are like the passions that you have and what are the industries that you're interested in, and then thinking through where is AI being used in these industries and what are the startups that are already in that space. So I think if you're a college student just looking through like what are the startups that are like going to revolutionize an entire industry and how can I either jump on board, maybe just go join that startup, or do I just learn and see what they're doing and kind of get a glimpse of like what the future is.
Thank you. I think you just gave me a business idea, and I'm gonna talk to you
All right,
offline.
perfect.
'Cause I can't let
Yeah.
you two have no. I'm just playing.
Yeah, so Bob, in this specific moment where we are transitioning into the era of super digital intelligence, what are some of the skills you think will be crucial for people to learn and develop?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think one, understanding what's possible, so the more playing with the technology and learning how it works, like learning what it can do and what it cannot do. And then even starting to think more like a manager in some degree or a business owner, where you think about a business owner right now, they come in and they're like, hey, we need to get this, and this done. These are my objectives. Team, go do it. Right. And so they don't really care how it's done or what you have to do to make it happen. They just you have to just get it done. Right. And so in some ways we can see that happening with AI, right? We can come in and be like, hey, AI agent, I need you to go pull this report, and answer these questions for me. Just go get it done. Yes. And then it'll come back and be like, oh, here you go. Here's the answers. So instead of just thinking through like, these are the tasks I have to do today for my job, thinking about what are the actual business objectives that my department is going for, and what is the objectives that my role is going for, and then how can we achieve those faster and quicker leveraging technology. And that the more that you kind of think on the business level and be able to help your business drive more value for your customers, then that will be an always valuable skill.
Thank you so much, Bob. It was a pleasure to have you in the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your insights about the future of artificial intelligence. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you. This has been very informative. And where can we find more information, from you and your company or anything?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's been great to be here. I appreciate the conversation. It's fun to think about. And my website is just Embryonic AI. So Embryonic, just EMBRYOINONIC AI. It's kind of hard to spell. I'll think of a better name for that, but it is.
I'll make sure to drop the link on the description, by the way.
And then Twitter is just RW Davis 513. It's probably the easy way.
Nice, thank you.